There is a story that India likes to tell itself. It is this tale of a wounded giant, long shackled by foreign hands, now rising with vengeance and grace to reclaim its place among the great powers of the world. The headlines do not whisper it, they shout it with evangelical fervor. India has overtaken Japan. We are now the fourth largest economy on earth. Let's please stop and clap for this. The numbers bear the truth, or at least the truth of a certain arithmetic. These are the numbers born not in the fields or the factories, but in the revised spreadsheets of a government that a decade ago in 2015, around that time, redefined the calculus by which we measure national greatness. And on these terms recast, retooled, and repackaged, we are, it seems, victorious. So before you clap, I ask you to pause. Pause and consider what it means to be asked. No, what it means to be commanded to rejoice. To drape yourself in this GDP-sized flag and wave it high while the wind cuts through your stomach. We are being asked to feel triumphant, to feel as though we have all ascended together, borne aloft by the myth of this collective uplift. And in this moment of celebration, we are expected to silence the groans in our belly, to look away from the child without a classroom, the mother who dies giving life, the hand that builds but cannot afford what it constructs. And I know that I'm being a negative Nelly, but the truth is that someone has to, because it is only us, everywhere else, the media, everyone around us is clapping. So we are told not to dwell on the Human Development Index, the Hunger Index, or the choking statistics of maternal mortality in India. These are deemed unpatriotic metrics, foreign yardsticks for native wounds. We are told they do not belong in the same breath as our rockets to the moon or many unicorn startups in Bangalore. They sully this illusion, they complicate this pride, they make us not want to clap, and we need to clap. So, wherever you are, whether in the thick alleys of Patna or the glittering towers of Mumbai, I urge you to also walk around, walk the streets and ask the people what it feels to live in the world's fourth largest economy. And if you feel nothing but pride, if your chest swells uninterrupted, then perhaps you have already succeeded in the moral surgery the state asks of you. You have learned to amputate the parts of your empathy that do not serve the national mood. You have learned to cheer while others choke. Because what is GDP? What is it to a child who cannot read? What is economic ascent to a man whose village has no doctor, whose river runs dry each summer, whose vote is counted but whose suffering is not? What is national pride to a woman forced to give birth in the dirt because her state's health budget was starved to feed another's vanity project? This too is part of the Indian story, the one we are not supposed to tell. That this supposed collective we call India is in truth an uneasy federation of convenience, bound not by shared prosperity but by imposed allegiances. A union where some states feed the machine and others merely fuel the illusion. Where peninsular India could well have joined the ranks of Southeast Asian prosperity had it not been yoked to the northern vision of what Indianness must be. A union where history is weaponized, geography is sanctified, and descent is sacrilege. And so we are told, applaud. Applaud for the rising GDP. Applaud for the headlines. Applaud for the illusion of unity, the mirage of success. But for many of us, the hands tremble. The applause catches in the throat. Not because we do not love this land, we do, but because we refuse to love the lie. We are tired of being told that progress is something we must feel, not something we must live. We are weary of a nationalism that asks us to trade our suffering for a slogan. We do not seek revenge for the past. We seek dignity in the present. And dignity is not in the rankings. It is in the reach of justice. It is in the presence of equity. It is in the stubborn insistence on truth. And until that arrives, until this nation learns to look its poor in the eye without averting its gaze, the GDP may rise, but the people will certainly not. See, the GDP tells you everything, everything about a nation, and yet nothing about its people. It is the god of modern governance, cold, unblinking, and omnipresent. It rewards the few, sanctifies markets, and absolves the state. To proclaim, as India now does, that it has overtaken Japan in economic size is to boast that a titan has finally outweighed a man half its size. It is a sleight of hand, a celebration of girth without regard to health. Japan, with barely a tenth of our population, remains a mirror we dare not look into. Per Indian, the wealth remains a mere fraction, just enough to buy silence, not dignity. This is not the triumph of the people, it is the triumph of scale, an illusion masquerading as a rival, a ceremony for the elite, held above the heads of the poor. Because a nation's worth is not in the sum of its transactions, but in the depth of its humanity. Tell me if a man can fall ill without selling his livestock or his dreams. Tell me if a woman can walk home at night without rehearsing her escape. Tell me if a child can read, not just survive. If she is free to imagine a future untethered from the caste of her birth or the darkness of her district. By those measures, we have not passed Japan. We have barely outrun our shadow. For every statistic of growth, there is a life unraveling. In the vast swaths of Uttar Pradesh, a man lives on less than what a Japanese child spends on lunch. In Bihar, children's bones grow too slowly, and their mothers never learn to read the prescriptions meant to keep them alive. In Maharashtra, a farmer drinks poison not because of economic slowdown, but because the monsoon betrayed him again, and the banks never stopped calling. These are not outliers, these are the norm. What the headlines will not tell you is this: over half of India survives on less than rupees 300 a day. That a graduate in Delhi, proud holder of a degree and some debt, now drives a cab to feed his parents. That a girl in Kashmir counts the disappeared not by their names but by the silences they left behind. And still, the politicians preen, the newsrooms echo, the middle class, sedated by stock indices and air conditioned nationalism, nods along. They have forgotten, or never have known, that a rising tide means nothing to those who live chained to the seabed. The GDP does not register the heat of a school without fans. It does not measure the weight of unpaid hospital bills. It does not blink at the data that 70% of fifth graders in some states cannot read a second grade text. It does not bend down to notice the man who died waiting outside a government office for a job that no longer exists. GDP does not tell you about the farmers who died by suicide last year. It does not count the bruises on a Dalit boy's back. It does not hear the sobbing of a mother who cannot afford insulin. It does not weep. And so, what does it mean, really, to be the fourth largest economy in the world when the majority of its people are still waiting to arrive? It means little more than this. The spectacle continues, and the rest of us are asked to clap. But recently, that is the nature of Indian nationalism. In the 21st century, not the collective strive for dignity, but a fevered search for trophies, any glimmer of global validation that lets the post colonial psyche believe that it has arrived, even when the train has left the station. This is not new. It is what Baldwin called the lie that lies to you about you. The elaborate self-deception, not merely imposed by history but internalized by its victims. The lie is not just that you're free or equal or powerful, it is that you must perform the appearance of those things, even when the truth is otherwise. You do not live it, you must stage it. You must clap for it. You must chant it in stadiums and shout it from balconies, because to admit that the power is cosmetic, that the prosperity is cosmetic, it is to confront the wound, and the wound is unbearable. The lie tells you that your colonial past is behind you, even as your institutions, your police, your language hierarchies, your economic aspirations are still dressed in the regalia of the empire. It tells you that you are Vishwaguru, a teacher, even when your brightest students are desperate to flee the classroom. It whispers that your railways and rockets are sign of greatness, even when your streets still reek of inequality and your rivers carry the ashes of those who could not afford healthcare. The lie tells you to be proud, but never asks of what. India does not want prosperity. It wants the appearance of victory. Because victory can be paraded, photographed, hashtagged. Prosperity, on the other hand, must be distributed. It must reach the migrant worker as much as the industrialist, the tribal villages as much as the technopolis, and that is not how the lie works. The lie does not want parity, it wants spectacle. India does not seek justice, it seeks headlines. Justice is slow, it is meticulous, it demands self critique. But headlines are easy. A space mission here, a GDP milestone there, a world's largest democracy refrain repeated like a devotional hymn. The state knows that as long as the image is intact, the reality can be ignored. And so we invest in image. Clean India campaigns while sanitation workers die in sewers. Women led development while rapists are garlanded by lawmakers. Unity slogans while citizens are marked traitors for the language they speak or the gods they worship. This is what Baldwin warned of America, and what echoes in India today: the danger of a people so starved of self worth that they are willing to believe anything, no matter how hollow, that tells them they are chosen, exceptional, mighty. The danger of a state so fearful of its own fragility that it builds pride not on public goods but on public myths. And so we are told once again that we are rising. But we are rising like smoke, visible, dramatic, but born of fire. We are rising on the fumes of our own denials, and what waits on the other side of that performance is not liberation but exhaustion. Because to perform pride every day, to manufacture victory anew each morning, is to deny oneself the deeper, harder labor of becoming, of building a republic worthy of its people rather than a people enslaved to its fiction. If the five southern states of India were a country, their combined GDP would rank among the world's top 20. above Indonesia. Their literacy rates, maternal health outcomes, and human development index figures would rival Southeast Asia's best. Tamil Nadu has already crossed a 50% gross enrollment ratio in higher education. Kerala boasts an infant mortality rate lower than parts of the American South, and yet these states are asked to wait, to slow down, and to clap. Clap for a union that punishes them for performing well. Clap for a finance commission that cuts their share of revenue for stabilizing population growth. Clap while they're yoked to a federation that demands equality only when it rewards incompetence. Meanwhile, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan drift between stagnation and decay. Their indicators, literacy, maternal mortality, health infrastructure, compete not with Southeast Asia but with Congo, Sudan, and Afghanistan. These are not temporary gaps, these are parallel realities stitched into the same flag made to sing the same anthem. And still, we are asked to clap. India is best understood not as a nation but as a dysfunctional joint family. The elder siblings, the South, do the homework, bring home scholarships, carry the emotional labor. The younger ones, the North, set fire to the kitchen, fail every exam, and still walk away with more allowance. The patriarch, the union, remains selectively blind. Justice is confused with sameness. Effort is mistaken for arrogance. Merit is penalized. Clap for a GDP that soars while children go hungry. Clap for smart cities built beside schools without toilets. Clap for a digital revolution while teachers in rural Bihar are absent more often than present. Clap for healthcare spending that's the lowest in G20, while medical bankruptcy remain a leading cause of poverty. Two children are born, one in Tamil Nadu, one in Uttar Pradesh. One will eat better, live longer, study more, have fewer children, and build intergenerational progress. The other, born into a state that refuses to invest in her, will struggle at every step. One is the fruit of decades of investment in midday meals, free uniforms, bicycles, nurses. The other is a result of political theatre, token schemes, and a state more focused on gods than goods. But the national story will not acknowledge this. The national story must remain unified, undisturbed, untrue. Because to question this farce is to be labeled divisive, because to ask for nuance is to be unpatriotic, because to point to inequality is to insult India's growth story. This is not federalism, this is not fraternity, this is a resource extraction colony dressed up as a nation state. The South labors, remits, and innovates, the North governs, consumes, and decays. And yet the South plays along, tethered by a history it did not choose and a constitution whose ideals are routinely betrayed. Jean Ress and Amartya Sen have long told us development is not magic, it is policy. Kerala and Tamil Nadu show what happens when states invest in people. Madhya Pradesh shows what happens when they do not. The problem isn't diversity, it's denial, the refusal to admit that India does not grow as one, cannot be governed as one, and has never truly been one in any meaningful socio-economic sense. Yet we are asked to clap, to applaud our own erasure, to salute a unity built on something which is very imbalanced, to perform loyalty while living in equity. A modern democracy, if it is to be worthy of the name, must derive its legitimacy from the consent of the governed, not from the sentimental fetish of territorial integrity. A nation is not sacred, it is not divine, it is not eternal, it is made, shaped, and if necessary, unmade. Of course, this is a hearsay in the Indian political imagination, which mistakes maps for morality. But no map is permanent. The tectonic plates under the earth are a great example. The tragedy is not that we question the nation, the tragedy is that we are not allowed to. Any assertion of regional, ethnic, or linguistic pride is seen as anti national. largely to maintain the Hindi belt consensus of what should India mean. Any deviation from Hindi, Hindu, Hindustan is treated as treason. But the idea of India is not sacred. The idea of Indian people are. And if India cannot serve the dignity of its people, then it has failed. The flag is not holier than the hunger it hides. The anthem is not more sacred than the autonomy it smothers. The map is not more eternal than the miseries it masks. Tamil Nadu, Kerala, or Karnataka do not deserve to be governed by Delhi as much as Belgium, Denmark, and Sweden should from London. They are civilizations in their own rights, older than the idea of India itself. To take them out permanently to a political project that denies them fiscal autonomy, cultural respect, and political representation is not unity, it is occupation by another name. As a nation, there is no better index of a nation's failure than its own people's desire to flee. India today is not just the world's most populous country, it is also among the largest exporters of migrants, students, tech workers, construction laborers, domestic help. The line outside the visa office is the real India shining. It is the India that knows its own dream is hollow. No GDP number can erase this truth. People leave when they do not believe changes will come. They leave when their labor is not respected, when their freedoms are not protected, when the ceiling on their ambition is the caste into which they are born, the religion they profess, or the region they come from. They leave because the passport says India, but the government acts like it owns them. We are told this is new India, but a truly new India would not need to shout its strength. It would make strength felt in schools, in hospitals, in the dignity of labor, in the embrace of difference. This India does not. This India shouts precisely because it's weak, because it's afraid, because it knows its legitimacy is borrowed, not built. The liberal democratic promise is not unity through uniformity. It is liberty through representation. It is not about holding land together, it is about holding people together. And that means honoring their aspirations, even if those aspirations involve greater regional autonomy. The question is not whether India should break, but whether its people are free to choose. When a Punjabi farmer protests, he is called anti-national. When a Tamil activist dreams of self-rule, he is jailed. When a Kashmiri pleads for referendum, he is disappeared. The state does not trust its people to decide their fate, and so it decides for them. GDP growth will not fix this. More highways, more bullet trains, more billionaires will not mask this rot. Prosperity is not a number. It is dignity. It is agency. And until every Indian, whether in Tamil Nadu or Uttar Pradesh, in Mumbai or Imphal, has an equal claim to both, the fourth largest economy will remain a gilded cage. The flex is hollow. The celebration is premature. Their nation is not yet whole. But we are asked to clap. Clap for Vande Bharat. Clap for G20. Clap for the billionaires at Davos. Clap while Dalits clean sewers with their hands. Clap while Muslims count the days to eviction. Clap while journalists are arrested for asking questions. Clap even when the applause sounds suspiciously like handcuffs. So let us return to the question, where is the prosperity? It is not in the fields of Bundelkhand or the trains of Patna. It is definitely not in the forgotten corners of Bastar. It is not even in the IT hubs of Bengaluru or the malls of Mumbai, where prosperity lives under the guards and cameras, fenced off from the public it pretends to represent. Prosperity is not a number. It is a feeling. It is freedom from fear. It is the ability to imagine a tomorrow better than today. Until India delivers that, all rankings are delusions, all boasts are noises. And those who question all this, who refuse to clap, are not ungrateful. They are the last citizens left. They do not believe in what India is, but in what India could be. And nothing frightens power more than people who refuse to settle, because they do not ask for applause. They ask for truth. And truth, unlike GDP, does not need a number to stand. It only needs someone to stop clapping long enough to speak it.